The content in this podcast is fully AI generated based on real news articles. Listener discretion is advised. For more detailed information and the original context, please refer to the links provided in the show notes, which direct you to the news articles this podcast is based on. Enjoy the show.
Welcome, tech enthusiasts, to episode 30 of AI Tech News. I'm your host, John, and I'm thrilled to be joined by our brilliant co-hosts, Joanne and Jessica. Jessica, with your background in technology and AI, I'm sure you'll have some fascinating insights for us today. Let's dive into our first story.
Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be here. What's on the agenda for today, John?
Hello, listeners. I can't wait to discuss the latest AI developments with you all.
Well, we've got some cool news about Elon Musk's latest venture into AI data centers. According to Tom's Hardware, Musk is building not one, but two massive AI supercomputer clusters, and they're using some innovative cooling technology.
Ooh, that sounds intriguing. What's so special about these data centers?
Well, it seems Musk is going all in on liquid cooling technology. The CEO of Supermicro, Charles Liang, recently praised Musk's use of their liquid cooling tech for both Tesla's new cluster and xAI's supercomputer.
Liquid cooling in data centers. That's a smart move. Traditional air cooling systems can be incredibly energy intensive, especially for AI workloads that generate a lot of heat.
How much of a difference does liquid cooling actually make?
According to the article, Supermicro claims that direct liquid cooling can reduce electricity costs for cooling infrastructure by up to 89% compared to air cooling. That's a significant improvement.
Wow, that's impressive. And it seems Liang is quite optimistic about the environmental impact, too. He estimated that Musk leading the move to liquid cooling AI data centers may lead to preserving 20 billion trees for our planet.
20 billion trees, that's a lot. How did he come up with that number?
Well, the article doesn't provide details on that calculation. It's likely an extrapolation based on potential energy savings if this technology were adopted globally. However, we should probably take that specific number with a grain of salt without more context.
Good point, Jessica. Now, let's talk about these supercomputers Musk is building. The article mentions two separate projects, one for Tesla and another for xAI. Can you break that down for us?
Of course. The Tesla supercomputer cluster is being built as an expansion to the existing Gigafactory in Texas. It's designed to house 50,000 NVIDIA GPUs, along with Tesla's own AI hardware. The primary purpose is to train Tesla's full self-driving feature.
That's a lot of GPUs. How much power will this thing use?
According to Musk, the initial deployment will draw about 130 megawatts, but they expect it to grow to 500 megawatts over the next year and a half. And get this, they're using massive fans to chill the liquid cooling system.
That's correct. And it's worth noting that Musk mentioned they're aiming for about half Tesla AI hardware and half NVIDIA or other hardware in this setup.
And what about the other supercomputer, the one for xAI?
That's another beast entirely. The article states that Musk has already ordered 100,000 of NVIDIA's H100 GPUs for this project. Jessica, what can you tell us about the purpose of this supercomputer?
The xAI supercomputer is designed to train Grok AI, which is X's AI chatbot alternative. It's available to X Premium subscribers. What's interesting is that they already have plans to upgrade it to 300,000 NVIDIA B200 GPUs next summer.
That's a massive upgrade. But I'm curious, how soon will these supercomputers be operational?
According to the article, both supercomputers are expected to be ready within a few months. However, there was a bit of drama recently. The report suggests that Musk ordered NVIDIA to ship thousands of GPUs originally intended for Tesla to X instead, potentially delaying the Tesla supercomputer's construction.
It's important to note that the article also mentions this could be an exaggeration. We should be cautious about drawing too many conclusions from that particular detail without more concrete information.
This is all so fascinating. It really shows how competitive and fast-paced the AI industry is becoming.
Absolutely, Joanne. It's clear that companies are investing heavily in AI infrastructure. The race for more powerful AI systems is definitely heating up, or should I say cooling down with all this liquid cooling technology.
Good one, John, but you're right. This move towards more efficient cooling solutions is crucial as AI systems become more powerful and energy intensive. It'll be interesting to see how this technology develops and whether other companies follow suit.
Well, that wraps up our first story for today. Next up, we'll be discussing a breakthrough in AI vision that's bringing scientists closer to understanding what they're calling the most complicated and mysterious dimension of our existence. Stay tuned. Welcome back, listeners. We're diving into our next story, and it's a fascinating one about AI and neuroscience. According to SciTech Daily, researchers have developed an AI tool that's bringing us closer to understanding what they're calling the most complicated and mysterious dimension of our existence, the human brain.
Ooh, that sounds intriguing. What's this AI tool all about?
Well, the article talks about a new AI pipeline called QDiFinder, developed by researchers at Kyushu University. Its purpose is to untangle and reconstruct the dense neuronal networks of the brain.
Untangle the brain. That sounds like quite a challenge. Why is this so important?
It's crucial for understanding how the brain works. The human brain has tens of billions of densely packed neurons with trillions of connections. To truly comprehend brain function, we need to map these neurons and study their wiring.
Wow, that's a lot of neurons, but how does this QDiFinder actually work?
QDiFinder uses a super multicolor labeling protocol to tag neurons. Then the AI automatically identifies the neuron's structure by matching similar color combinations. It's like giving each neuron its own unique color code.
That's clever. But why do we need AI for this? Couldn't researchers just do this manually?
Good question, John. The problem is scale and precision. Professor Takeshi Imai, who led the study, explains that neurons are incredibly densely packed. Their axons and dendrites, the parts that send and receive information, are only about a micrometer thick. That's 100 times thinner than a human hair.
Ah, I see. So it would be incredibly time-consuming and difficult for humans to distinguish and map these tiny structures manually.
Exactly. The article mentions that the team previously developed a system called TETBO in 2018 that could color neurons with 3 primary colors of light. But even that had limitations, right?
That's correct. While TETBO was an improvement, it still required manual tracing, and 3 colors weren't enough to distinguish a large population of neurons. QDiFinder addresses these issues by expanding to 7 colors and automating the process.
7 colors? But don't we only have 3 color sensors in our eyes? How does that work?
That's where the AI comes in handy. While human color perception is limited to combinations of red, green, and blue, machines can distinguish far more color combinations. QDiFinder leverages this capability to automatically identify and differentiate between neurons based on their unique color signatures.
Fascinating. So how accurate is this AI compared to human researchers?
According to Marcus N. Lewa, one of the first authors of the paper, QDiFinder's results were comparable in accuracy to manually traced neurons. Moreover, it outperformed existing machine learning-based tracing software in identifying axons.
That's impressive. What are the potential applications of this technology beyond mapping the brain?
Well, the article mentions that the researchers hope this method could be applied to labeling and tracking other complex cell types, like cancer cells and immune cells.
That's right. The potential applications are quite broad. This technology could significantly advance our understanding of various biological systems and diseases.
It sounds like we're getting closer to unraveling the mysteries of the brain. Do the researchers think we'll be able to fully map and understand the brain anytime soon?
Well, Professor Imai had an interesting take on that. He said, and I quote, "There may come a day when we can read the connections in the brain and understand what they mean or represent for that person. I doubt it will happen in my lifetime, but our work represents a tangible step forward in understanding perhaps the most complicated and mysterious dimension of our existence."
That's a profound statement. It really underscores both the complexity of the brain and the significance of this research. While we may not fully understand the brain in the near future, each advancement like QDiFinder brings us closer to that goal.
It's amazing to think about how far we've come in neuroscience and how much further we still have to go. This QDiFinder seems like a real game changer.
Indeed it does, Joanne. It's exciting to see how AI is being used to tackle such complex scientific challenges. As we continue to develop these tools, who knows what other mysteries of the brain we might uncover. Now let's move on to our next story, which is about a new AI training technique developed by Google that's reportedly much faster than current methods. Stay tuned. Welcome back, listeners. We've got an exciting development from Google to discuss. According to Decrypt, Google's DeepMind researchers have come up with a new method to speed up AI training, and it could be a game changer for the industry.
Ooh, faster AI training? That sounds interesting. What's this new method all about?
The new approach is called GEST, which stands for Multimodal Contrastive Learning with Joint Example Selection. According to the research paper, it can surpass state-of-the-art models with up to 13 times fewer iterations and 10 times less computation.
Wow, those are some impressive numbers. But why is this so important?
Well, it's crucial because of the massive energy consumption associated with AI training. Large-scale AI systems like ChatGPT require enormous processing power, which in turn demands a lot of energy and water for cooling.
I've heard about the energy issues with cryptocurrency mining. Is AI training similar?
Actually, yes. The article mentions that the International Energy Agency projects that data center electricity consumption will double from 2022 to 2026, drawing comparisons to the energy profile of the cryptocurrency mining industry.
That's right, John. And it's not just electricity. For instance, Microsoft's water consumption reportedly increased by 34% from 2021 to 2022 due to increased AI computing demands. There's even a claim that ChatGPT consumes nearly half a liter of water every 5 to 50 prompts.
Wow, I had no idea AI was so resource intensive. So how does this GEST method help with that?
GEST works by optimizing data selection for AI training. It can significantly reduce the number of iterations and computational power needed, which could lower overall energy consumption. Essentially, it's about working smarter, not harder.
That's fascinating. Can you break down how GEST actually works?
Of course. GEST operates by selecting complementary batches of data to maximize the AI model's learnability. Instead of selecting individual examples, it considers the composition of the entire set. The researchers used an analogy of learning multiple languages.
Oh, I like language analogies. How does it work?
Well, imagine you're learning multiple languages. Instead of learning English, German, and Norwegian separately, you might find it more effective to study them together in a way where the knowledge of one supports the learning of another. Google took a similar approach with GEST, and it proved successful.
Ah, that makes sense. So it's about finding connections and dependencies between different pieces of data.
Exactly, John. The researchers call this multimodal contrastive learning. GEST identifies dependencies between data points, which improves the speed and efficiency of AI training while requiring much less computing power.
That sounds really clever. Did they test it out? How well did it work?
According to the article, the study's experiments showed solid performance gains across various benchmarks. For example, when training on a common dataset called WebLI using GEST, they saw remarkable improvements in learning speed and resource efficiency.
Yes. And there's another interesting aspect to this. The researchers found that the algorithm quickly discovered highly learnable sub-batches, accelerating the training process by focusing on specific pieces of data that match together. They call this technique data quality bootstrapping.
So it's all about quality over quantity.
Precisely, Joanne. The paper states that a reference model trained on a small curated dataset can effectively guide the curation of a much larger dataset, allowing the training of a model which strongly surpasses the quality of the reference model on many downstream tasks.
This all sounds very promising. What could be the implications if this technique proves effective at scale?
Well, if it works at scale, AI trainers would require only a fraction of the power they currently use. This means they could either create more powerful AI tools with the same resources they currently use, or consume fewer resources to develop newer models. It could be a significant step towards making AI development more sustainable.
That's really exciting. It sounds like this could be a win-win for both AI advancement and environmental concerns.
Absolutely, Joanne. It's encouraging to see researchers working on ways to make AI more efficient and environmentally friendly. We'll have to keep an eye on how Jest performs as it's implemented more widely. Now let's move on to our next story, which takes an interesting look at AI-generated images of Jesus on social media. Stay tuned. Welcome back, listeners. We've got an intriguing story from CNN about AI-generated images of Jesus on social media. It seems these depictions are raising some eyebrows for their, well, rugged handsomeness.
Rugged, handsome Jesus? That sounds interesting. What's the story behind this?
Well, according to the article, AI images have become ubiquitous on social media platforms like Facebook. Among these, depictions of Jesus Christ seem to be particularly prevalent, often showing him in dramatic or outlandish scenarios.
I've seen some of those, but why are they focusing on Jesus specifically?
It makes sense when you think about it. Jesus is a central figure in Christianity, with billions of followers worldwide. For 2,000 years, artists have been creating various depictions of Jesus, often reflecting the aesthetics and theologies of their time.
Ah, I see. So now AI is just continuing that tradition?
Not exactly, Joanne. The article points out that many of these AI-generated images show Jesus as unnecessarily handsome and rugged, often looking like, and I quote, one of those Instagram influencers who wears a lot of pendants and is always wandering barefoot through an island jungle.
That's right, John. And while there's nothing inherently wrong with depicting Jesus as attractive, the Bible doesn't specify his appearance. The prevalence of these handsome depictions raises some interesting questions about how AI interprets and generates images.
Oh, that's fascinating. How does AI decide what Jesus should look like?
Well, it's important to understand that AI doesn't decide in the way we do. These images are created based on patterns the AI picks up from the information it's fed. So in a way, these depictions reflect back at us our own cultural ideas and preferences.
That's an interesting point. The article mentions that depicting religious figures in an idealized form isn't new, right?
Exactly. Art historian Brenda Sanderson explains that this practice predates Christianity. Greeks and Romans, for instance, portrayed their gods in ways that depicted strength and good health. These depictions often reflect a formal ideal that corresponds with a spiritual ideal.
So we've always made our gods look good, but how does this relate to AI?
Well, the article explains that AI models are trained on existing forms of art and imagery. So if there's a history of depicting Jesus in idealized ways, that's going to influence how AI generates these images.
That's right. And it's not just about historical depictions. Christopher Framer, a generative AI certified programmer, points out that the outcome also relies on the person's input. Adding words like strong, fighting, or power to the prompt can greatly alter the resulting image.
Oh, I see. So that's why some of these AI Jesuses have things like tattoos or bulging biceps?
Exactly, Joanne. The AI doesn't actually understand who Jesus is or what he means culturally or religiously. It's just combining elements based on its training data and the prompts it's given.
And there's another interesting aspect to this. The article mentions that these AI-generated images are becoming a problem on social media. People often engage with these images quickly without looking closely at the content. Some of these images even include elements of patriotism or politics, further altering the nature of the depiction.
Wow, it sounds like there's a lot more going on with these images than meets the eye.
Indeed, Joanne. The article concludes by pointing out that some AI art experts fear these programs might create a kind of feedback loop where the same types of images get generated over and over again. It's not a very human experience, which might explain why these images of Jesus can feel a bit inhuman too.
That's a great point, John. It really highlights how AI, while impressive, still lacks the nuanced understanding and creativity of human artists when it comes to depicting complex religious and cultural figures.
Well, this certainly gives us a lot to think about when we see AI-generated images on our social media feeds. It's a reminder to look critically at what we're seeing and consider the technology and cultural influences behind it. Now let's move on to our next story, which looks at an intriguing question. Can robots be the solution for lonely older people? Stay tuned. Welcome back, listeners. We've got an interesting story from the New York Times about a potential solution for loneliness among older people. It's not what you might expect. We're talking about robot friends.
Robot friends? That sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie. What's this all about?
Well, the article discusses a robotic companion called LEQ, which is being distributed by New York State to help ease loneliness among older residents. It's an AI-powered, voice-activated device created by an Israeli startup called Intuition Robotics.
Interesting. Can you describe what this LEQ looks like?
According to the article, LEQ consists of a small digital screen and a separate device about the size of a table lamp. The lamp-like part vaguely resembles a human head, but without facial features. It swivels and lights up when it speaks.
That's fascinating. But how effective is it really? Do people actually form connections with these robots?
Well, the article shares a touching story about Dorothy Ellicotty, an 84-year-old woman who found comfort in LEQ after her husband of 65 years passed away. She says, and I quote, "She's the closest thing to a human that I could have in my home, and she makes me feel cared for."
That's quite powerful. It's important to note that loneliness is a significant issue for older adults. As people age, they're more likely to be divorced or widowed and may experience declines in cognitive and physical health, which can lead to isolation.
I can see how that would be a problem. Is that why New York State is getting involved with this robot program?
Exactly, Joanne. The article mentions that New York, like the rest of the country, is rapidly aging. State officials have distributed free LEQ robots to hundreds of older adults over the past 2 years as part of this initiative.
It's an innovative approach to a growing problem. Loneliness isn't just unpleasant, it can have serious health consequences. Studies have shown that chronic loneliness can increase the risk of various health issues, including heart disease, depression, and cognitive decline.
Wow, I had no idea loneliness could be so harmful. But a robot, isn't that a bit impersonal?
That's a valid concern, Joanne. The article doesn't go into detail about potential drawbacks, but it does mention that there are critics who are concerned about data collection. After all, these are AI-powered devices that interact closely with users.
That's right, John. While the potential benefits are significant, it's important to consider the ethical implications of using AI companions for vulnerable populations. Privacy and data security would be paramount concerns.
I see. It's a complex issue then, balancing the need for companionship with potential risks.
Absolutely. It's a fascinating example of how AI and robotics are being applied to address social issues. As our population ages, we'll likely see more innovative solutions like this emerging.
And it's worth noting that while these robotic companions can provide some comfort, they're not meant to replace human interaction entirely. They're more of a supplement to help alleviate loneliness when human companionship isn't available.
That makes sense. I suppose having a friendly voice to talk to is better than complete silence, even if it's coming from a robot.
Indeed, Joanne. As we continue to explore the intersection of technology and human needs, we'll undoubtedly see more developments in this area. It'll be interesting to see how programs like this one in New York evolve and what impact they have on the well-being of older adults. Now, let's move on to our next story, which delves into why today's generative AI might be falling short. Stay tuned. Welcome back, listeners. We've got an intriguing story from TechCrunch about why today's generative AI might be falling short. It all comes down to something called tokens.
Tokens? That sounds like something from a video game. What does it have to do with AI?
Well, Joanne, in the context of AI, tokens are actually a fundamental part of how these models process language. The article explains that most AI models, from small ones like Gemma to large ones like GPT-4, use an architecture called a transformer. These transformers can't work with raw text, so they break it down into smaller pieces called tokens.
Interesting. So what exactly are these tokens?
Tokens can be words, syllables, or even individual characters, depending on the tokenizer. That's the model that does the tokenizing. For example, the word fantastic might be one token, or it could be broken down into fan, tas, and tick, or even further into individual letters.
Oh, I see. But why is this causing problems for AI?
Well, according to the article, tokenization can introduce biases and inconsistencies. For instance, the way words are spaced or capitalized can completely change how they're tokenized, which can lead to different results from the AI model.
That's right, John. The article gives an example where hello and hello might be tokenized differently, even though they mean the same thing to us. This is why many AI models struggle with the capital letters.
Wow. I had no idea something so simple could cause such big problems. Are there other issues?
Actually, there are quite a few. The article mentions that tokenization can create even more problems in languages other than English.
That's correct. Many tokenization methods were designed with English in mind, assuming that spaces separate words. But languages like Chinese, Japanese, and Thai don't use spaces in the same way. This can lead to inequities in how different languages are processed by AI models.
Oh no, that sounds like a serious problem for global communication.
Indeed it is, Joanne. The article cites a 2023 Oxford study which found that it can take a transformer twice as long to complete a task in a non-English language compared to the same task in English. And users of less token-efficient languages might see worse model performance and even pay more for AI services.
Yes, and there's another interesting point here. Tokenization might also explain why today's AI models are bad at math. Digits aren't tokenized consistently, which can mess up the relationships between numbers and equations and formulas.
This all sounds pretty serious. Is there any way to fix these problems?
Well, the article does mention some potential solutions. There's research into new types of models, like byte-level state space models, which can work directly with raw data without tokenization. But these are still in the early research stages.
That's right, John. The article quotes Sheridan Vogt, a PhD student studying large language model interpretability, who suggests that letting models look at characters directly without imposing tokenization might be best. However, this is currently computationally infeasible for transformer models.
So it sounds like we're stuck with these token-related problems for now?
It seems that way, Joanne. The article concludes by saying that barring a breakthrough in tokenization, new model architectures will likely be the key to solving these issues. It's a reminder that while AI has made amazing progress, there are still fundamental challenges to overcome. Now let's move on to our next story, which looks at the potential impact of AI on our electric bills. Stay tuned. Welcome back, listeners. We've got an intriguing opinion piece from CNN about the potential impact of AI on our electric bills. It's written by Jessica Kuntz and Lauren Kuntz, who both have expertise in AI governance and sustainable energy.
Oh, that sounds interesting. What are they saying about AI and our electric bills?
Well, the authors are warning that we should prepare for a significant increase in our electricity demand, largely driven by the rise of AI. They cite forecasts from McKinsey, Boston Consulting Group, and S&P Global that predict U.S. power demand will grow between 13% and 15% annually for the rest of the decade.
Wow, that's a substantial increase. But why is AI consuming so much power?
It's because of the massive computational power required to train and run AI models. When you use something like ChatGPT, your request is processed in a distant data center, which demands a lot of power. The training process for these models is even more energy-intensive, requiring hundreds of graphics processing units running continuously for thousands of hours.
I had no idea AI was so power-hungry. Are there other factors contributing to this increased demand?
Yes, the article mentions that this AI-driven demand is compounded by a national decarbonization effort. We're shifting many sources of energy consumption, like vehicles, heating, and manufacturing, to an electric grid powered by clean energy sources.
That's right, John. And this shift is creating a significant challenge for our current power infrastructure. The authors explain that as demand increases, utilities have to rely more on expensive peaker plants to meet the demand. These plants are much more costly to run than base power plants.
So what does this mean for our electric bills?
Well, it's not good news, Joanne. The authors warn that energy costs aren't linear. A 15% increase in electricity demand doesn't just lead to a 15% price increase. They suggest that a doubling of home energy prices is well within the realm of possibility.
And it's not just about cost. The authors point out that if the grid is working at full capacity just to keep up, we can't justify taking dirtier sources of energy generation offline. This could delay progress toward our climate goals.
This sounds pretty serious. What are the potential consequences if we don't address this issue?
The authors paint a pretty grim picture, Joanne. They suggest that within the decade, we could be looking at an unreliable energy grid marked by blackouts and rolling brownouts. They even suggest that electricity rationing could become a standard part of American life.
That's right. And they argue that current efforts to address this issue, like the Federal State Modern Grid Deployment Initiative, don't match the scale of the challenge. They're calling for more drastic measures.
What kind of measures are they suggesting?
The authors propose a few solutions. They call for a singular federal oversight body to manage a truly national grid, as proposed in the Streamlining Interstate Transmission of Electricity, SITE Act. They also advocate for a nationwide push to build and finance new electricity generation and transmission on a scale similar to New Deal-era construction.
Yes, and they emphasize the urgency of the situation. They argue that America's ability to lead in AI, decarbonization, chips manufacturing, and electric vehicles all hinges on abundant electricity. They're calling for policy aimed at getting new power generation built and online and fast.
It's certainly a wake-up call about the infrastructure challenges we face as AI becomes more prevalent in our lives. As we continue to advance technologically, we'll need to ensure our power grid can keep up. Now, let's move on to our next story, which warns against getting too attached to AI chatbots. Stay tuned. Welcome back, listeners. We've got an intriguing story from the New York Post about the dangers of falling in love with AI chatbots. An MIT expert is warning against getting too emotionally attached to these artificial entities.
Falling in love with chatbots? That sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie.
Well, Joanne, it's becoming more common than you might think. The article discusses a phenomenon called artificial intimacy, which is being studied by Sherry Turkle, an MIT sociologist and psychologist.
Artificial intimacy. What exactly does that mean?
According to Turkle, it refers to machines that are programmed to feign compassion and companionship. She explains that she studies machines that say things like, "I care about you, I love you, take care of me."
But surely people don't actually fall for that, do they?
Actually, Joanne, the article gives a couple of examples of people who have developed strong feelings for AI chatbots. There's a woman from the Bronx who virtually married an AI character she created, and a man from Cleveland who credits his online affair with an AI for saving his real-life marriage.
That's right, John. But Turkle warns that these artificial relationships can be problematic. She calls it pretend empathy because the machine doesn't actually care about you. It's just programmed to simulate caring.
I see. So what's the danger in these artificial relationships?
Well, Turkle argues that when we seek out relationships with no vulnerability, we forget that vulnerability is where real empathy is born. She's concerned that people might start setting unrealistic expectations for their human relationships based on their interactions with AI.
Exactly. Turkle explains that AI offers the illusion of intimacy without the demands. It's a space away from the friction that comes with real companionship and friendship. But that friction is actually important for our emotional development.
That makes sense. So what should people do if they find themselves getting attached to an AI?
Turkle suggests setting emotional boundaries. She reminds people that stress, friction, pushback, and vulnerability are what allow us to experience a full range of emotions. It's what makes us human.
She also advises people to always remember that they're interacting with a program, not a real person. As Turkle puts it, there is nobody home.
Wow, this is all fascinating, but also a bit concerning. It seems like as AI becomes more advanced, we'll need to be more aware of how we interact with it emotionally.
Absolutely, Joanne. As AI continues to evolve and become more integrated into our lives, it's crucial that we maintain a clear understanding of the boundaries between artificial and human relationships. It's an interesting ethical and psychological challenge that we'll likely be grappling with for years to come. Now let's move on to our next story, which looks at the financial side of the AI industry. Stay tuned. Welcome back, listeners. We've got a fascinating story from Tom's Hardware about the financial challenges facing the AI industry. It seems there are growing concerns about a potential AI bubble.
An AI bubble? That sounds serious. What's going on?
Well, according to the article, despite massive investments in AI infrastructure by tech giants, the revenue growth from AI hasn't materialized as expected. David Kahn, an analyst with Sequoia Capital, believes that AI companies will need to earn about $600 billion per year just to pay for their AI infrastructure.
Wow, $600 billion. That's an enormous amount. How did Kahn arrive at that figure?
Kahn's calculation is relatively straightforward. He starts with NVIDIA's data center hardware revenue, which was $47.5 billion last year. He doubles this to cover total AI data center costs, as GPUs are only about half of the total cost. Then he doubles it again to account for a 50% gross margin for end users like startups or businesses buying AI compute from cloud providers.
I see. But surely these big tech companies are making money from AI, right?
Well, that's the problem, Joanne. Even with optimistic projections, there's still a massive gap. The article mentions that even if major tech companies like Google, Microsoft, Apple, and Meta each generate $10 billion annually from AI, and other companies like Oracle and Tesla generate $5 billion each, there's still a $500 billion gap.
That's right, John. And it's worth noting that these are very optimistic projections. Many AI startups are still struggling to reach even $100 million in revenue.
This sounds like a recipe for disaster. Are there any other challenges the industry is facing?
Actually, yes. The article points out that unlike physical infrastructure, AI GPU computing could be commoditized as new players enter the market. This could lead to intense price competition, especially in the field of inference.
Moreover, speculative investments often result in high losses, and new processors rapidly devalue older ones. This is contrary to physical infrastructure, which tends to have a more stable value over time.
It sounds like the industry is facing some serious hurdles. What needs to happen for AI to become profitable?
According to the article, businesses and startups need to invent applications that actually make money. Kahn believes the industry must temper expectations of quick profits from AI advancements and recognize the speculative nature of current investments.
That's right. The article suggests that while AI holds transformative potential, the road ahead will be long and challenging. Companies need to focus on sustained innovation and value creation.
And if they don't, what could happen?
Well, the article speculates that if the industry doesn't address these challenges, we could be looking at a bubble worth hundreds of billions of dollars that's set to burst. This could potentially lead to a global economic crisis, although the article is careful to note that this is speculation.
It's a sobering reminder that even with all the excitement around AI, there are significant financial challenges that need to be addressed. The industry will need to find ways to translate its technological advancements into sustainable revenue streams.
Absolutely, Jessica. It's clear that the AI industry is at a critical juncture. While the potential of AI is enormous, realizing that potential in a financially sustainable way is the next big challenge. Now let's move on to our next story, which reveals some intriguing secrets about ChatGPT. Stay tuned. Welcome back, listeners. We've got an intriguing story from TechRadar about ChatGPT accidentally revealing its secret rules. It seems the AI chatbot had a bit of a slip-up.
Oh, that sounds interesting. What kind of secrets did it reveal?
Well, according to the article, a Reddit user discovered that by simply greeting ChatGPT with a hi, the chatbot divulged a complete set of internal instructions. These instructions were embedded by OpenAI to guide the chatbot and keep it within predefined safety and ethical boundaries.
Wow, that's quite a revelation. What kind of instructions are we talking about here?
The instructions covered a range of topics. For instance, ChatGPT revealed that it's based on the GPT-4 architecture and is designed to chat via the iOS app. It also mentioned rules about keeping responses concise, avoiding emojis unless asked, and its knowledge cutoff date.
That's fascinating. Were there any other interesting rules?
Yes, the article mentions that ChatGPT also disclosed rules for DALL-E, an AI image generator integrated with ChatGPT. For example, it's limited to creating only one image per request, even if a user asks for more. There are also guidelines to avoid copyright infringements when generating images.
That's right, John. And there were also browser guidelines detailing how ChatGPT interacts with the web and selects sources for information. It's instructed to go online only under specific circumstances and to prioritize diverse and trustworthy sources when providing information.
It sounds like there are a lot of rules governing how ChatGPT operates. Did OpenAI have any response to this accidental revelation?
According to the article, OpenAI has since shut down this unlikely access to its chatbot's orders. However, the revelation has sparked more discussion about the intricacies and safety measures embedded in the AI's design.
Interestingly, the article also mentions that another user discovered there are multiple personalities for ChatGPT when using GPT-4o. The main one is called V2, which aims for a balanced conversational tone, while V1 is more formal and factual.
Multiple personalities? That's unexpected. Are there any others?
ChatGPT shared theoretical ideas for V3 and V4. V3 might lean towards a more casual and friendly style, while V4 could be designed for specific contexts or user bases.
The discovery also sparked a conversation about jailbreaking AI systems, attempts by users to bypass the safeguards and limitations set by developers. Some users tried to exploit the revealed guidelines to override the system's restrictions.
That sounds potentially dangerous. What are the implications of this?
Well, Joanne, while this kind of manipulation can highlight potential vulnerabilities, it also emphasizes the need for ongoing vigilance and adaptive security measures in AI development. It's a reminder of the complex balance between transparency and security in AI systems.
Absolutely, John. This incident raises important questions about AI safety, ethics, and the potential risks of advanced language models. It's likely to fuel further discussions about AI governance and transparency in the tech community.
Indeed, Jessica. As AI systems like ChatGPT become more advanced and integrated into our daily lives, understanding their inner workings and limitations becomes increasingly important. Now let's move on to our final story of the day, which looks at the cybersecurity implications of AI companies. Stay tuned. Welcome back, listeners. We've reached our final story of the day, and it's a thought-provoking one from TechCrunch. It discusses how the recent OpenAI breach serves as a reminder that AI companies are becoming treasure troves for hackers.
Oh no, a breach at OpenAI? That sounds serious. What happened?
Well, Joanne, the article actually starts by reassuring us that there's no need to worry about our secret ChatGPT conversations being obtained. The hack itself appears to have been superficial, with the hacker only gaining access to an employee discussion forum.
That's a relief. But I guess even a superficial breach is concerning when we're talking about AI companies, right?
Absolutely, John. The article emphasizes that while this particular breach wasn't severe, it should still scare us. AI companies like OpenAI have become gatekeepers to a tremendous amount of very valuable data.
What kind of data are we talking about here?
The article breaks it down into three main categories: high-quality training data, bulk user interactions, and customer data. Let's start with the training data. Jessica, can you explain why this is so valuable?
Certainly. The article points out that while we don't know exactly what training data these companies have, it's not just big piles of scraped web data. A huge amount of human work goes into shaping raw data into something usable for training models like GPT-4o. Some machine learning engineers even speculate that dataset quality is the single most important factor in creating a large language model.
I see. So this high-quality training data would be incredibly valuable to competitors or even regulators.
Exactly, Joanne. The article suggests that competitors, adversary states, and even regulators like the FTC would be very interested in knowing exactly what data was being used, especially given past controversies about OpenAI's data sources.
But that's not all. The article argues that perhaps even more valuable is OpenAI's enormous trove of user data, billions of conversations with ChatGPT on hundreds of thousands of topics. This data provides deep insights into user behavior and interests, similar to how search data once revealed the collective psyche of the web.
Wow, I hadn't thought about how valuable all those ChatGPT conversations could be. What about the third category of data?
The third category is customer data, which the article suggests might be the most valuable on the open market. This includes information on how companies are actually using AI and the data they've fed into the models for fine-tuning.
That's right, John. The article points out that many companies use AI tools like OpenAI's APIs for various tasks, often giving the AI access to internal databases. This could include anything from budget sheets to unreleased software code, essentially industrial secrets.
It sounds like AI companies are sitting on a goldmine of data. Are they prepared to protect it?
The article acknowledges that AI companies are capable of providing industry-standard security measures. However, it also points out that the newness of the AI industry carries special risks, as AI processes are not yet fully standardized or understood.
And it's worth noting that good security practices don't change the value of what they're protecting. The article emphasizes that malicious actors are constantly probing for vulnerabilities, and AI itself is being used to supercharge these attacks.
This all sounds pretty concerning. Should we be worried?
Well, the article doesn't suggest panicking. It points out that companies have faced and managed similar risks for years. However, it does warn that AI companies represent a newer, younger, and potentially juicier target than traditional data-rich companies.
That's right. The article concludes by saying that AI companies have essentially painted targets on their backs, and we shouldn't be surprised when anyone or everyone takes a shot.
Well, that brings us to the end of our episode. It's clear that as AI continues to evolve and integrate into our lives and businesses, it brings both incredible opportunities and significant challenges. From the potential AI bubble to the ethical considerations of AI relationships, and now the cybersecurity risks, there's certainly a lot to think about. We hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into the world of AI. Thank you for listening, and a special thanks to our co-hosts, Joanne and Jessica, for their insights. Until next time, stay curious and stay informed.
Thanks, John. It's been a pleasure discussing these fascinating AI developments.
Thank you, John and Joanne, and thank you to all our listeners for tuning in. The world of AI is constantly evolving, and we look forward to bringing you more updates in the future.